The PE Friedrich is a Tier 5 German battleship that cannot decide what it wants to be. It's German, but it has no turtle back. It's got battleship guns, but they're awkwardly small and struggle with overmatch. Kind of like a certain other Tier 5 battleship that just came out. In contrast to other German battleships, it's actually somewhat accurate due to it being a battlecruiser and not a battleship, which means it gets better dispersion. I'm always stuck on what to do with this ship. Do I run a dispersion build like I do with every other battleship? Or do I run a secondary build, decreasing my IQ by 40? This ship reminds me of the Scharnhorst. Its guns are great for blowing oblivious cruisers out of the water, less so with battleships, as unless they give you flat as a pancake broadside from close range, it's not uncommon for your shells to only get regular penetrations or just shatter completely. To be simply put, your secondaries are German. They are effective, have long range, and reload surprisingly quickly. Whilst this ship isn't as good at spanking broadsides as other battleships, it's well suited for a good old Chad push. It may suffer from German superstructure syndrome, but at least it's noticeably smaller than the likes of the brick ship or the large destroyer. For a low-tier ship, it's surprisingly fast and maneuverable, which is of course because it's an off-brand battleship, sacrificing armor for speed. Its armor may be thin, but it can still bow tank effectively. The ship itself is comparatively slim compared to some other same-tier chonkers, so the donut shuffle works very well in combination with the ship's above-average reload speed and fairly nice rudder shift time. This allows you to get close to enemies to get those beefy secondaries into action. And once you get to close range, nothing can stop you. Just know your limits. Don't push into a place where you're almost guaranteed to get squashed like a bug. Be careful about how you choose to brawl. Hopefully don't brawl something with torpedoes. If you do brawl, make sure no enemies can intervene so you don't get caught in a crossfire. As for your consumables, you have a standard damage con and heals. You also have no option but to take the secondary booster, which is definitely not a bad thing, though it does restrict your variety. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is its fantastic AA, which is about as good as Tier 7 battleship AA, so aircraft shouldn't be anything more than flies. With this being said, the PE Friedrich has a quick reload time, good turret traverse time, is fairly accurate, great AA, maneuverability and secondaries. Unfortunately, its armor is overall less than desirable, but it is tanky bow-in. It has small guns, and is very long, which creates a bigger target. And because the ship itself is big, its citadel is as well, and it's slightly above water. In terms of commanders, you have a few picks. If you want dispersion and devastating accuracy, then use Frank the Hippie with flammable cannoneer, gyrating drill bits, marksmanship, reaching out, and will to rebuild, because the other two are scams. If you want secondary power and brawling perfection, you use Otto's silly ass, with brawler, porcupine, firefighter, master mechanic, and will to rebuild, because the other two are scams. If you have Henry J. Hyde, then you can use him for a hybrid build with flammable cannoneer, porcupine, marksmanship, master mechanic, and fight fire with fire, because it's the least scammiest out of all of them. For your upgrades, you either use aiming systems or secondary mod, depending on which aforementioned commander you are using. For your second slot, I recommend steering for close quarters engagements. Overall, I would say this ship isn't worth buying. It's basically a buy-earn with a few quirks. So I like the ship, but I can't recommend you spend your hard-earned dough on it. It has its moments, but it also has its flaws. Overall, it gets a 6.5 out of 10. It's cool if you get it from a crate, but it's just not that worth it. But just remember, it's all about having fun. Like and subscribe, whatever.
All all
Russian carrier players
should spontaneously combust into flames and die. Anyways, I'm off to eat the BTS Hungry Jack's burger.